The shuttle made a terrible sound as it hit the ground. Metal scraped against rock and tree roots. Sarah Chen felt her body slam against the safety straps as the small ship bounced 3 times before it finally stopped moving. Smoke filled the cockpit. Sarah coughed and pressed the release button for her straps. The buckle clicked open, and she fell forward onto her knees. Her head hurt, and her left arm felt sore. But she could move everything. That was good. She crawled to the emergency kit and pulled it out from under the pilot's seat. The shuttle's front window was cracked in spiderweb patterns. Through the broken glass, she could see tall purple trees and thick green bushes. This was definitely Kithara, the forest moon she was supposed to study. Sarah had been on her way to collect plant samples when something went wrong with the shuttle's engine. The computer had started beeping warning sounds, and then everything just stopped working. She had barely managed to guide the shuttle down before it crashed into the forest. Now she was stuck here until someone came to find her. Her team back on the main research ship would notice she was missing in a few hours. But a few hours on Kythera could be very dangerous. This moon was home to some of the most deadly creatures in the galaxy. Sarah pushed open the shuttle door. It made a loud creaking noise that seemed very loud in the quiet forest. She stepped outside and looked around. The trees here were huge. Much bigger than any trees on Earth. Their purple bark was smooth, and their leaves were a strange blue-green color. Everything smelled like flowers and wet dirt. She pulled the emergency kit with her and found a flat spot near a large tree. Sarah opened the kit and spread out everything inside. There was food for 3 days, water for 2 days, a medical kit, tools to fix things, and most important, a rescue beacon. But when she tried to turn on the beacon, nothing happened. The crash had broken something inside it. Sarah looked at the broken beacon and sighed. She would have to fix it if she wanted her team to find her quickly. She found her tools and started taking the beacon apart. The work was detailed and she had to focus on the tiny pieces inside. That was when she felt like someone was watching her. Sarah had learned to trust that feeling during her years of research work on different planets. Wild animals often watched scientists before deciding if they were dangerous or not. She kept working on the beacon but let her eyes look around without moving her head too much. There, behind a group of thick bushes about 20 meters away, she saw movement. Something large and dark was moving very slowly between the trees. Then she saw another shape moving to her right side, and another one to her left. Sarah's heart started beating faster, but she kept her hands steady as she worked. She knew what was watching her. The shapes were too big to be anything except Kithani predators, and from their size, these were young ones. Cubs, even young Kithani were extremely dangerous. Adult Kithani were 3 times bigger than Earth, lions, and much smarter. They hunted in packs and could track prey across entire planets. They had 6 legs, long sharp claws, and teeth that could bite through metal. Their black fur had glowing stripes that could change color to show their mood or to confuse their prey. But these were cubs, which meant they were probably learning how to hunt. That could be good or bad. Cubs were less experienced, but they were also more likely to make mistakes or take risks. Sarah continued fixing her beacon and pretended not to notice them. She had learned that showing fear to wild animals usually made them more aggressive. Prey animals run away when they see predators. If she acted afraid, the cubs might think she was prey. One of the cubs moved closer. Sarah could hear its feet stepping on fallen leaves. She looked up from her work for just a moment and saw it clearly. The cub was beautiful in a terrifying way. It was about the size of a large bear from Earth, but it moved like a huge cat. Its black fur was thick and shiny, and bright golden stripes glowed softly along its sides and back. Its 6 legs were muscular and ended in paws with claws as long as kitchen knives. Its head was shaped like a mix between a wolf and a big cat, with large yellow eyes and a mouth full of sharp white teeth. The cub stopped moving when it saw Sarah looking at it. It waited, probably expecting her to scream or run away or freeze with fear. All prey animals did one of those things when they saw a Kitani. Sarah looked at the beautiful, dangerous creature for a few seconds. Then she gave it a small nod, like she was greeting a neighbor, and went back to fixing her beacon. The cub tilted its head to one side, clearly confused. This was not how prey was supposed to act. The other two cubs moved closer too. Sarah could hear them making soft sounds to each other. Their sounds were too deep for human ears to understand clearly, but she could tell they were talking about her. The glowing stripes on their fur changed from the orange color of hunting mode to a brighter blue color. Sarah had read that blue meant they were curious or confused. One of the cubs, the one with golden stripes, came close enough that Sarah could smell it. It smelled like warm fur and something wild, like the deep forest after rain. The cub was watching every move Sarah made with intense focus. Sarah kept working. Her hands were steady, and her breathing was calm. She had spent years studying dangerous animals on many different planets. She understood that most predators could smell fear. They could hear when a heart beat too fast, or when breathing became quick and shallow. They could see when someone's hands shook, or when they moved in jerky, nervous ways. But Sarah felt calm. Not because she was brave, but because she understood something important about these cubs. They were not hunting her. They were trying to figure out what she was. The golden-striped cub moved even closer. The golden-striped cub was now only 3 meters away from Sarah, close enough to attack with one quick jump, close enough that she could see the individual whiskers on its face and count the spots on its nose. But Sarah kept working on her beacon like nothing unusual was happening. The cub made a sound that was like a question. It was a low rumble that came from deep in its chest. Sarah looked up at it again. "Hello," she said quietly. "You're a beautiful one, aren't you?" The cub's ears moved forward. Its glowing stripes flashed once, then stayed steady blue. It understood her words through the universal translator that all space travelers carried, but it had never heard that tone of voice before. Prey animals made high, scared sounds when they saw Kithani. They screamed or cried or begged. This human sounded like she was talking to a friend. The other two cubs came closer too. One had silver stripes that sparkled when it moved. The other had red stripes that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. They formed a triangle around Sarah, but they were not in attack positions. They were sitting back on their rear legs like curious pets. Sarah could feel their confusion. These cubs had probably been taught by their parents how to hunt. They knew that all living things feared Kithani. It was a simple rule that had worked for millions of years. See a Kithani. Feel afraid. The fear would make the prey animal run or hide or freeze, and then the Kithani would catch it. But this human was not following the rules. The silver-striped cub tried something new. It stood up tall on its back legs and spread its front 4 legs wide. This made it look huge and terrifying. Then it opened its mouth and let out a roar that shook the leaves on the trees. The sound was incredibly loud. It was the kind of sound that would make a brave warrior run away crying. On most planets, animals would hide for days after hearing a roar like that. Sarah stopped working and looked up at the cub. She watched its display with clear interest, like she was seeing something fascinating. When the roar ended, she smiled a little. "That was very impressive," she said. Her voice was still calm and steady. "You're going to be quite large when you grow up, aren't you?" The silver-striped cub lowered itself back to the ground. Its stripes were flashing rapidly between orange and blue. Orange meant it was ready to hunt. Blue meant it was confused. The rapid flashing showed that it could not decide which emotion to feel. The third cub, the one with red stripes, tried a different approach. It began to pace back and forth in front of Sarah. This was a hunting move designed to make prey animals nervous. The back and forth movement was supposed to make it hard for prey to decide which direction to run. While the prey was watching the moving cub, other cubs would attack from behind. But Sarah just glanced at the pacing cub and went back to her work. She had connected 2 wires inside the beacon, and now a small light was blinking green. Good. The beacon was starting to work again. The cubs made more sounds to each other. Their communication was a mix of rumbles, chirps, and flashing lights on their fur. Sarah could not understand their language, but she could guess what they were saying. Why isn't she afraid? Maybe she doesn't understand what we are. Should we try to hunt her? But she's not acting like prey. This is very confusing. The golden-striped cub moved closer again. It was now close enough to touch Sarah if it reached out one paw. Sarah could feel the heat from its body and hear its breathing. The cub smelled her scent carefully. Human scent was different from anything the cubs had experienced before. Most prey animals smelled like fear when they saw Kithani. Their scent would change to something sharp and sour that made hunting easy. But this human smelled complex and interesting. There were many layers to her scent, like a puzzle made of smells. She smelled like metal and plastic from her equipment. She smelled like the soap she used and the food she had eaten. But underneath all of that, she smelled calm and confident. It was the scent of someone who was not afraid and did not see herself as prey. The golden-striped cub had never smelled anything like it. Sarah finished connecting another wire in the beacon. The device made a happy beeping sound and more lights started blinking. She was making progress. Almost got it, she said to herself. Then she looked at the golden-striped cub. Sorry. I don't mean to ignore you. I'm just trying to fix this so my friends can find me. My name is Sarah, by the way. The cub blinked slowly. In many animal species, slow blinking was a sign of trust and relaxation. Sarah had seen it in cats on Earth and similar creatures on other planets. Maybe it meant the same thing for Kithani. The silver-striped cub came closer too. It sniffed at Sarah's equipment bag, clearly curious about the strange objects inside. Sarah watched, but did not try to stop it. Those are just tools, she explained. Nothing dangerous. Well, unless you try to eat them, I suppose. The cub looked at her, then carefully used one claw to lift the flap of the bag. Inside were more tools, some food packages, and a water bottle. The cub sniffed at everything, but did not try to take anything. The red-striped cub stopped pacing and sat down. It was watching Sarah with intense focus, like it was trying to solve a puzzle. Its red stripes pulsed slowly, which Sarah thought might mean it was thinking hard. Sarah worked on the last connection in her beacon. This was the tricky part. If she connected the wrong wires, the beacon might break completely. She had to be very careful. As she worked, she talked to the cubs. You know, when I was a little girl, I wanted to meet creatures like you. Most people are afraid of predators, but I always thought you were amazing, so strong and smart and beautiful. The cubs listened to her voice. They were learning that her calm tone was not a trick. She really was not afraid of them. This was something completely new in their experience. I studied animals my whole life, Sarah continued as she made the final connection. I learned that most dangerous animals only attack when they have to, when they're hungry or defending their territory or protecting their babies. But if you're not threatening them and you're not food they want to eat, they usually just ignore you. All away, the beacon made a series of happy beeping sounds. Several lights turned green, and a small screen lit up showing numbers and symbols. There we go, Sarah said with satisfaction. Now we just have to wait for the signal to reach my ship. She looked at the three cubs, who were all watching her intently. And while we wait, maybe we can get to know each other a little better. The golden-striped cub was the first one to move closer. She crept forward very slowly, like she was approaching something that might disappear if she moved too fast. Her yellow eyes never left Sarah's face, watching for any sign of fear or aggression. Sarah sat back on her heels and watched the cub approach. The creature moved with incredible grace for something so large. Each step was placed carefully and silently. Even though she was just a cub, she already showed the natural hunting skills that made adult Kithani so feared across the galaxy. Easy, girl, Sarah said softly. I'm not going anywhere. The cub stopped when Sarah spoke. The word girl was interesting to her. In Kithani packs, young females were often called similar names by their mothers. This human somehow knew she was female, even though male and female Kithani cubs looked almost the same to most other species. Sarah slowly reached into her equipment bag and pulled out a water bottle. The movement was smooth and calm, with no sudden motions that might startle the cubs. She opened the bottle and took a small drink, then set it down on the ground between herself and the golden-striped cub. Thirsty? She asked. The cub tilted her head to one side. She had never been offered anything by prey before. Usually, prey animals tried to hide anything that might be valuable. They certainly did not offer to share their water. The silver-striped cub and the red-striped cub moved closer too. They were all young enough that curiosity was starting to win over their hunting instincts. Their glowing stripes were now steady blue, the color that meant they were very interested in something. The golden-striped cub reached out one massive paw and carefully touched the water bottle. Her claw tapped against the plastic, making a small clicking sound. She had never seen plastic before. Most materials on Cathara were natural things like wood, stone, and metal from crashed spaceships. Sarah watched the cub explore the bottle. "That's made on Earth," she explained. "My home planet. Everything there is much smaller than here. We had to learn to make things light and strong so we could carry them easily." The cub picked up the bottle with surprising gentleness and sniffed at it. The water inside smelled clean and fresh, but it also carried traces of Sarah's scent. After a moment of consideration, the cub carefully set the bottle back down without drinking from it. She was not thirsty, and sharing food or water with strangers was not something young Cathani usually did, but the fact that Sarah had offered it was important. It showed that the human did not see the cubs as enemies. Friends shared things. Enemies tried to keep everything for themselves. The red-striped cub came close enough to investigate Sarah's other equipment. He sniffed at the rescue beacon, which was still beeping softly and flashing its green lights. The electronic sounds and smells were completely new to him. His red stripes pulsed faster as his curiosity grew. Sarah noticed his interest in the beacon. "That's calling for help," she explained. "It sends signals up to space. To my ship. My friends will follow the signal to find me." The cub looked at her, then at the beacon, then back at her. He was trying to understand how the small device could talk to something so far away. Caithani cubs were very smart, but technology was not something they usually encountered in their forest world. The silver-striped cub was the boldest of the three. She approached Sarah from the side and sniffed at her shoulder. The human smelled even more interesting up close. There were so many different scents mixed together that it was like reading a story. Sarah sat very still while the cub investigated her. She could feel the warm breath on her neck and hear the soft sound of the cub's breathing. One wrong move could trigger the cub's hunting instincts. But Sarah was not worried. The cub's body language was curious, not aggressive. "I probably smell pretty strange to you," Sarah said quietly. "I've been to a lot of different planets. I probably smell like dozens of different worlds." The silver-striped cub moved around to look at Sarah's face. The human's eyes were strange. Most prey animals had eyes on the sides of their heads, so they could watch for danger in all directions, but Sarah's eyes faced forward, like a predator's eyes. That was confusing for a young cub who was still learning to identify different types of creatures. Sarah slowly raised her hand and held it out toward the silver-striped cub, palm up. It was the same gesture humans use to let dogs smell their scent before petting them. The movement was slow and non-threatening. The cub looked at the offered hand with great interest. Human hands were very different from Caithani paws. They were small and soft, with no claws or fur. But they were obviously very good at using tools, based on how Sarah had fixed her beacon. After several seconds of consideration, the silver-striped cub reached out and gently touched Sarah's hand with her nose. The contact lasted only a moment, but it was significant. Caithani cubs did not usually touch other species unless they were hunting them. Sarah felt the soft, wet nose against her palm and smiled. "Nice to meet you too," she said. The golden-striped cub watched this interaction with great interest. If her sister could touch the human safely, then maybe she could too. She moved closer and sniffed at Sarah's other hand. The red-striped cub decided he wanted to investigate something else. He walked over to Sarah's crashed shuttle and began sniffing around the damaged hull. The smells there told him a story about fire and hot metal and fear, but the fear scent was old. It was from when the shuttle was crashing, not from now. Sarah watched him explore the wreckage. "That was pretty scary when it happened," she admitted. "I thought I might not survive the crash. But here I am, perfectly fine, and meeting 3 beautiful young hunters." The red-striped cub looked back at her when she said, "Hunters." That word was important to Kithani cubs. It meant they were recognized as dangerous and skilled, even if they were still young, but Sarah had said it like it was a good thing. Most creatures spoke about Kithani hunters with fear and respect, but also with hatred. This human seemed to think being a hunter was something to be proud of. The golden-striped cub finally worked up the courage to touch Sarah's hand. She pressed her nose against Sarah's palm very gently, just like her sister had done. Sarah's skin was warm and soft, completely different from the rough fur and tough skin of Kithani. "You're very gentle," Sarah told her. "I bet you'll be an excellent hunter when you grow up. Smart and careful, not just strong." The three cubs were all close to Sarah now. They had formed a loose circle around her, but it was not a hunting circle. It was more like the way young animals gathered around their mother when she was teaching them something new. Sarah looked at each of them in turn. "I wonder where your parents are," she said. "Cubs your age usually don't travel far from home." The golden-striped cub made a soft sound that might have been an answer. The sound was sad and lonely. Sarah had heard similar sounds from young animals who had lost their mothers. "Oh," Sarah said quietly, understanding. "I'm sorry." That's hard. She did not know the whole story, but she could guess enough. These cubs were probably orphans, trying to survive on their own. That would explain why they were so curious about her, instead of simply attacking. They were hungry for any kind of social contact, even from a strange human. "Well," Sarah said, settling more comfortably on the ground, "since we're all waiting for my rescue ship to arrive, why don't we keep each other company?" The three cubs had settled down around Sarah in a comfortable circle. The golden-striped female, who Sarah had started thinking of as Zara, was lying on her side close enough that Sarah could have reached out and touched her. The silver-striped female was grooming one of her paws, but keeping one eye on Sarah at all times. The red-striped male was still investigating different pieces of equipment, sniffing and touching everything with careful curiosity. Sarah pulled out her tablet computer and turned it on. The screen lit up with a soft blue glow that immediately got the cubs' attention. They had never seen anything like it before. "I think you're wondering why I'm not afraid of you," Sarah said as she worked with the tablet. Most creatures would be terrified right now, wouldn't they? Zara's golden stripes pulsed once in what Sarah was learning meant agreement. The cub was getting better at understanding Sarah's tone and body language. "Where I come from," Sarah continued, "being afraid is normal. Earth has lots of dangerous animals. But my people learned something important about fear a long time ago." She touched the tablet screen and brought up a picture. It showed a human man standing very close to a massive brown bear. The bear was 3 times bigger than the man, with huge claws and teeth, but both the man and the bear looked calm. The cubs stared at the image with great interest. The silver-striped female moved closer to get a better look. "This is a bear from my planet," Sarah explained. "Very dangerous. Very strong. It could kill a human easily. But look at their body language. Neither one is afraid or angry. They understand each other." She touched the screen again and showed them another picture. This one showed a human woman sitting next to a giant cat with orange and black stripes. The cat was almost as big as a Kithani cub. "This is a tiger," Sarah said. "Another predator from Earth. Also very dangerous. But this woman worked with this tiger for years. She understood that the tiger wasn't evil or cruel. It was just doing what tigers do. And the tiger learned that this human was not prey." The red-striped male came closer to look at the tablet. His stripes were flashing rapidly between blue and orange. He was fascinated but also confused. Sarah showed them more pictures. Humans swimming with sharks, humans raising wolf cubs that grew up to be pets. Humans studying lions in the wild without any weapons or protection. "My species learned to live with dangerous animals by understanding them," Sarah explained. "We discovered that most predators don't want to fight unless they have to. Fighting is dangerous, even for the strongest hunter. An injured predator can't hunt, and if it can't hunt, it dies." Zara made a low rumbling sound that Sarah was learning meant she was thinking hard about something. "You want to know why I'm not afraid?" Sarah asked, looking directly at Zara. It's because I can read your intentions. Your body language tells me what you're feeling and what you plan to do. She pointed at Zara's relaxed posture. Look how you're lying down. Your claws are not extended. Your muscles are loose. Not tight and ready to spring. Your stripes are blue, not orange or red. You're curious about me, not hunting me. Sarah touched the tablet again and showed them a video of human children playing with young wolves. The wolf cubs and human children were running around together, completely comfortable with each other. When I was little, Sarah said, I wanted to study animals like you. My parents thought I was crazy. They said predators were too dangerous. But I learned something important. Fear makes you stupid. When you're afraid, you can't think clearly. You make bad decisions. You miss important information. The silver-striped female had stopped grooming her paw and was listening intently to every word. But if you stay calm, Sarah continued, you can see what's really happening. You can understand what the animal is actually thinking and feeling. Most predators are not evil monsters. They're just trying to survive, like everyone else. She showed them a picture of humans working together to help an injured lion. The big cat was unconscious, while human doctors treated a wound on its leg. This lion was hurt by a trap, Sarah explained. It couldn't hunt or take care of itself. So humans helped it heal. When it woke up, it didn't attack the humans. It seemed to understand that they had helped it. The cubs looked at each other and made soft communication sounds. Sarah could not understand their language, but she could guess they were discussing what they had learned. You see, Sarah said, my people learned that respect is more important than fear. We respect dangerous animals like lions and bears and tigers. We know they could hurt us, but we don't let fear control us. Instead, we try to understand them. She put down the tablet and looked at each of the cubs in turn. Right now, you could easily hurt me. You're bigger, stronger, and faster than I am. Your claws and teeth are much better weapons than anything I have. But you're not trying to hurt me. Do you know why? Zara tilted her head to one side, clearly thinking about the question. Because I'm not acting like prey, Sarah answered. Prey animals run away, or hide, or freeze with fear. They smell like fear, and sound like fear, and act like fear. But I'm not doing any of those things, so you don't see me as prey anymore. The red-striped male made a questioning sound. You're wondering what I am, if I'm not prey, Sarah said. That's a good question. I'm not prey, but I'm also not a threat to you. I'm not trying to take your territory or hurt your family or steal your food. I'm just a visitor who ended up here by accident. She showed them another picture on her tablet. This one showed a human researcher sitting peacefully in the middle of a wolf pack. The wolves were all around her, but they looked relaxed and comfortable. This woman lived with wolves for 2 years, Sarah explained. She learned their language and their customs. She became part of their pack, not as a leader or a follower, but as a friend. The wolves protected her, and she helped them in return. The cubs were completely focused on Sarah now. Their stripes had changed to a deep blue color that Sarah had not seen before. She thought it might mean they were learning something important. Fear makes animals predictable, Sarah said. If you scare a rabbit, it will always run away. If you corner a mouse, it will always try to hide. But when you take away fear, animals can make choices. They can decide to be curious instead of scared. They can choose to be friendly instead of defensive. She looked at Zara. You chose to be curious about me instead of hunting me. That choice made all the difference. Zara slowly moved closer to Sarah until she was close enough to rest her massive head near Sarah's leg. It was a gesture of trust that adult Kithani had never shown to any other species. And that, Sarah said softly, gently touching the soft fur on Zara's head, is why I'm not afraid of you. Because I can see that you're not just dangerous predators. You're intelligent beings who can make choices, and you chose to be my friends. The rescue beacon had been sending signals for 3 hours when Sarah heard the familiar sound of engines approaching. She looked up through the tree canopy and saw the bright lights of a rescue shuttle cutting through the purple sky of Kithara. The three cubs heard the engines too. Their heads snapped up and their stripes immediately changed to orange, the color of alertness and possible danger. The red-striped male stood up quickly, ready to run. The silver-striped female crouched low, preparing to hide. Only Zara stayed calm, watching Sarah's reaction to decide how she should feel about the approaching shuttle. "It's okay," Sarah said gently. "Those are my friends coming to find me. They're not dangerous." She stood up slowly and activated the homing signal on her beacon. The device sent out a bright flash of light that would guide the rescue shuttle to her exact location. Then she turned to the three cubs. "My friends might be scared when they see you," she explained. "Most humans have never met Kaithani before. They know your reputation as great hunters, so they might be frightened." Zara made a low rumbling sound that Sarah had learned meant she understood. "But I want them to see what I've seen," Sarah continued. "I want them to know that you can be curious and gentle and intelligent. Will you help me show them?" The cubs looked at each other and had a quick conversation in their flashing light language. Sarah could not understand the specific meaning, but she could see they were discussing something important. After a moment, all three cubs moved to positions around Sarah, but not in a threatening way. They arranged themselves like an honor guard, showing that they were protecting her rather than hunting her. The rescue shuttle landed in the small clearing where Sarah's crashed shuttle had come down. The engines wound down with a high whining sound, and Sarah could hear voices from inside the shuttle. They sounded worried and urgent. The shuttle door opened and three people in environmental suits stepped out quickly. They were carrying medical kits and emergency equipment, ready to help Sarah with whatever injuries or problems she might have. But they stopped moving the moment they saw the cubs. "Sarah," called Dr. Martinez, the expedition leader. "Stay very still. Don't move. We're going to try to drive them away." He and the other two rescuers started pulling out sonic deterrent devices designed to scare away dangerous animals. But Sarah held up her hand to stop them. "Wait," she called back. "They're not dangerous." Well, they could be dangerous. But they're not being dangerous. "They're my friends." Dr. Martinez looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Sarah, those are Kaithani. They're the most deadly predators in the galaxy. You need to get away from them right now." "I know what they are," Sarah replied calmly. "But look at them, Martinez. Really look. Do they look like they're hunting me?" Dr. Martinez and his team looked more carefully at the cubs. The three young Kaithani were sitting peacefully around Sarah. Their stripes were blue, not the orange or red colors associated with hunting or aggression. Zara was actually lying down next to Sarah with her eyes half closed, looking completely relaxed. "I don't understand," said Dr. Kim, the team's biologist. "Kaithani don't behave this way around other species. They should have attacked hours ago." Sarah smiled. "They didn't attack because I didn't act like prey. I treated them with respect instead of fear. And they responded by choosing curiosity over aggression." She knelt down next to Zara and gently petted the cub's massive head. The rescuers gasped, expecting the predator to snap at Sarah's hand. Instead, Zara made a sound that was unmistakably a purr. It was a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to come from her entire body. "That's impossible," whispered Dr. Johnson, the team's xenobiologist. "Kaithani don't purr. They've never shown affectionate behavior toward any other species. These cubs are orphans," Sarah explained. "They were curious about me because they were lonely. When I showed them respect instead of fear, they decided I might be worth knowing. We've been sharing stories and getting to know each other." She stood up and looked at her rescue team. "I've been studying animal behavior my whole career, and I've never seen anything like this. These cubs are incredibly intelligent. They understand concepts like friendship and choice and trust." Zara stood up and walked slowly toward the rescue team. Dr. Martinez and the others tensed up. But Sarah called out to them. "Don't be afraid," she said. "Let her smell you. She's just curious." Zara approached Dr. Martinez and sniffed at his environmental suit. She could smell his fear through the protective equipment. But she also smelled something else. He carried traces of Sarah's scent because they worked together on the same ship. That made him interesting rather than threatening. After a moment, Zara stepped back and sat down. She looked at Dr. Martinez with what could only be described as a polite expression, then made a soft, chuffing sound that might have been a greeting. "Hello to you too," Dr. Martinez said shakily. He was still scared, but he was beginning to understand that these predators were not going to hurt anyone. The silver-striped female and the red-striped male approached the other rescuers more cautiously. They sniffed at the humans and their equipment with great interest. But they were careful not to make any sudden movements that might be seen as aggressive. Dr. Kim slowly reached into her equipment bag and pulled out a food ration. It was a protein bar designed for emergency situations. She held it out toward the red-striped male, her hand shaking slightly. "Are you hungry?" she asked. The cub sniffed at the food bar carefully. It smelled different from anything he had ever encountered before, but it also smelled like it might be edible. After a moment of consideration, he gently took the bar from Dr. Kim's hand and bit into it experimentally. His stripes flashed bright blue as he tasted the unfamiliar food. It was not bad, though it was very different from the fresh meat he was used to eating. He ate the whole bar while Dr. Kim watched in amazement. "This is incredible, Doctor," Johnson said, recording everything with her camera. "I'm documenting the first peaceful contact between humans and Cathani. This is going to change everything we know about their species." Sarah gathered up her equipment while talking to the cubs in the gentle tone they had come to recognize. "I have to go now," she explained. "My people are worried about me, and I need to get back to my ship, but I hope I'll see you again someday." Zara made a sad sound and pressed her head against Sarah's leg one more time. She had enjoyed this strange encounter with the fearless human, who treated her like an intelligent being instead of a mindless monster. "I'll tell other humans about you," Sarah promised. "I'll make sure they know that Cathani are not just dangerous predators. You're intelligent and capable of friendship. Maybe someday, your people and my people can be allies instead of enemies." The cubs watched as Sarah and her rescue team loaded their equipment into the shuttle. Sarah waved goodbye as the shuttle door closed, and the three young Cathani watched the aircraft take off and disappear into the purple sky. Back on the research ship, Sarah spent hours writing her report about the encounter. She included all of her recordings and observations, along with recommendations for future contact with Cathani populations. "The key," she wrote, "is to approach them as equals rather than as monsters to be feared. Cathani respond to respect and calm confidence. They are capable of friendship and cooperation when they are not treated as mindless predators." Her report would eventually lead to the first official diplomatic contact with adult Cathani. Within a year, humans and Cathani would sign the first interspecies cooperation treaty in galactic history. Cathani hunters would begin working with human explorers to map dangerous regions of space, while human scientists would help Cathani colonies develop new technologies. But all of that started with one human woman who refused to be afraid, and three young predators who chose curiosity over aggression. Sarah had proven that courage is not the absence of fear, but the wisdom to look beyond fear and see the potential for understanding, even in the most dangerous circumstances. And sometimes, that understanding can change the entire galaxy.